Hey Atlanta, say hello to Small Business Help from Apple. That's right, we're here to make starting and running your business simpler. From helping you choose the right devices to setting them up hassle-free, we can help you build your business in no time. Speak to a business expert and get the help you need at no cost whatsoever. At Apple, we're open for your small business. Go to apple.com/smallbusiness or visit an Apple store to learn more.
How would you like a 15% discount to my daily email, the stack of stuff, the show notes, discounts to the conference, all of that? All you need to do is text the word show to 33777. You'll get the annual subscription with a 15% discount to my daily email. You'll get the stack of stuff, the links to the show notes, discounts to the conference, and so much more. All you have to do is text the word show, SHOW, to 33777. Text show to 33777.
Welcome to the Eric Erickson Show podcast, Hour 3.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls across America, welcome. It's the Eric Erickson Show. Phone lines are open, 877-973-7425. If you're listening online in the Atlanta area, our flagship station, we've been bumped because of the breaking news of the school shooting. It's in their area, so there's local programming has shifted there, obviously, to respond to the breaking news. If you're listening online to me on the stream at ericerickson.com, you can shift back and forth to the flagship station. They've got that ongoing breaking news, as do several of the other affiliates in Georgia have all gone to local programming right now. That's how big a story it is in the state. There are multiple casualties, multiple people dead in Barrow County school shooting. The shooter is in custody. Do not know the status of the shooter. In any event, I got to move on to other stuff, and I feel like I've been distracted, and I have been by the whole Nazi stuff. I'm this is out of the blue, and back in the day, William F. Buckley was able to drive the John Birch Society from the conservative movement, and I almost I want to email Rich Lowry over at National Review and say, can we do a like Group P saying Nazi apologist not welcome? Because there's got to be a bright line within the right that we're not going to revise history to make the Nazis into good guys or embrace anti-Semitism, because any movement that does is doomed to fail, and deservedly so. But I got to switch to China now, because there's a story out there you might not have paid attention to. But I got to talk about this story because it kind of blew my mind when I saw it. And it's kind of breaking news, and it's not getting the attention that I really do think that this needs to get. You probably have not heard the story. The United States State Department has concluded a $200 million settlement with defense contractor RTX over charges related to handling military secrets, including sensitive data about the F-22 and F-35 fighter jets and the B-2 bomber. The breaches occurred as RTX employees traveled to China, Russia, Iran, and other nations, raising concerns about classified information. RTX did voluntary disclosures of 750 violations of the Arms Export Control Act and international traffic in arms regulations, which occurred over 6 years, from 2017 to 2023. According to the State Department, the violations involved unauthorized exports of defense articles due to improper jurisdiction and classification, unauthorized export of classified defense articles, and unauthorized transport of defense articles by employees to proscribed destinations. Essentially, what was happening here is that this company, RTX, had employees traveling to China, Russia, and Iran with company laptops that had classified information on those laptops. And we can presume very easily that China, Russia, and Iran got hold of all the information about the F-35 and the F-22. Why can we presume that? Because anyone for any major corporation in America or the government will tell you, if you go to China and you take your cell phone or your laptop, the Chinese will find a way to get access to it, whether it's going through customs and they separate you from your laptop, or they get into your hotel room while you're out of your hotel room. They snoop through wireless access. They set up wireless hotspots you can use, but then they can get into your computer while you're on the wireless hotspot. The Chinese go to great lengths. In fact, I know multiple people, including CEOs of Fortune 500 companies, who tell me they have a phone that they use exclusively when they go to China. I know people in the government who tell me that when they go to China, they have special laptops and cell phones they use that are completely detached from networks here, so that when they get home, if the Chinese have put viruses or malware or worms to get in, they can't get into government systems. That's how much we take this seriously. And in this situation, they were able to get into these hard drives because this particular company, RTX, was allowing people to travel abroad without clean hard drives. I don't know anything about RTX. Rockwell Collins and Raytheon, now part of RTX. Colby Badwar is a journalist with the English language version of the Russia-focused media outlet Insider, reported most of the violations were committed by Rockwell Collins before being acquired by Raytheon, now part of RTX. The violations span multiple RTX divisions, highlighting systemic compliance issues across the company. The prescribed destinations involved Iran, Lebanon, Russia, and China. Many of the violations were from RTX employees traveling internationally while carrying their work laptops. These employees attempted to access their laptops during the trip, unaware that doing so could expose sensitive information. According to the State Department, the laptops contained a range of defense articles tied to critical military programs, such as the Aegis Ballistic Missile Defense System, the B-2 Spirit Bomber, the F/A-18EF Super Hornet, the F-35 Lightning II, and the Boeing E-3 AWACS. One key incident occurred in May and June of 2021 when an RTX employee traveled to St. Petersburg, Russia, with an RTX-issued laptop loaded with ITAR-controlled technical data related to at least 5 military aircraft. During the trip, the employee noticed several cybersecurity alerts and reported them to the cybersecurity team. But the alerts were incorrectly dismissed as false positives, likely due to the team's transition to a new cybersecurity tool. The lapse in security protocols highlights the risks associated with inadequate cybersecurity measures in regions with heightened surveillance. In another case, an RTX employee traveled to Iran and attempted to log into his computer while in the country. RTX security team detected and froze the laptop, but further investigation revealed its hard drive contained highly sensitive technical data on the B-2 Spirit Bomber and the F-22 Raptor. The presence of such critical information in a sanctioned nation like Iran represents a severe breach of U.S. security protocol. These people are insane. You should shut the whole company down for having stupid people on the payroll. And yet that happened. Now, concurrent to all of that, the former deputy chief of staff to the governor of New York, Kathy Hochul, the former deputy chief of staff, her name is Linda Sun. She's been arrested as a Chinese spy. Her husband and they owned a liquor store, and apparently, if reports are to be believed, laundered money for the Chinese through the liquor store, while also using her position in government to block access to government officials from the Taiwanese and others. It makes you wonder how often this is happening in this country. The Chinese are clearly not to be trusted. The Chinese are clearly playing dirty. We're at war with the Chinese and don't seem to operate like it. Now, I go back to a month ago, I had a panel discussion at the gathering with two men who specialize in dealing with China. I'm real tempted to play the audio on the show. It was a really fascinating conversation. This might be a good thing to do on a Friday. But in any event, these two guys were talking about how the federal government is so slow to respond to China that states are actually amping up their efforts. And one of those efforts is a state stress test. The state of Georgia, where I am, was one of the first states to embrace it. And about a third of the other states are doing the stress test. Now, what is the stress test? The stress test is to see if your water grid or your power grid are hijacked remotely by the Chinese, could you get it up and operational quickly, or could you prevent it from being hijacked? And what some states are finding is that no, that there actually is malware in their computer systems, in large part because a lot of the power grid and a lot of the water grid, it's kind of funny, they still run on Windows 3.1, outdated technology. It's like, for instance, I find it very funny. You know the computer crash a couple of months ago. It cost the airlines billions of dollars, and the only airline that wasn't affected was Southwest. It's because Southwest still used Windows 3.1. Southwest has had a lot of problems because it uses Windows 3.1, but it actually saved them in this particular situation. Delta was hard hit. A lot of our infrastructure in this country is being undermined right now by China. It is bothersome to me that we also have spies from China, people working for them as undisclosed agents in government who could be helping block surveillance, block examination, or certifying things that have been examined that haven't. I don't know the extent to which Linda Sun did nefarious things for China, but she's clearly accused of having blocked people, from example, the government of Taiwan from meeting with the governor of New York. It's a big red flag to the extent of Chinese. Now, what's so notable here is that the Biden administration today is warning everyone that the Russians are going to try to interfere in the election again. Now, this is a very subtle attack of Donald Trump, not so subtle, really, that they're really trying to claim that a Trump victory would be yet again a product of a Russian-stolen election. That, to me, actually signifies that they're not sure Harris can pull this off. I don't think they'd be raising the flag like they're raising on saying, oh, Russia's going to try to steal the election again, if they were comfortable with Kamala Harris. Meanwhile, they're ignoring China. You know, the Chinese are credibly accused, and has actually been shown, interfered in elections in Canada. The Chinese actually scuttled a primary, a Democrat running in a primary in the United States in New York. Yeah, we should probably go back and look at that race. There was a Chinese national running, or immigrant to this country, running for Congress in the United States in New York, and dropped out of the race because of an attack campaign by the Chinese designed to get him out of the race, and it worked. In Canada right now, Justin Trudeau's government is in the midst of scandal because it appears the Chinese directly interfered in elections in China to help Justin Trudeau's government. We got the Democrats here screaming about Russia. They're not screaming about China. Given the Democrats' weakness on China, I wonder why. We got all sorts of problems. All sorts of problems with the Chinese. And they're screaming about the Russians. I'm telling you guys, this is a huge national security problem. And on top of that, to have this company, have employees of this company, listener Andy actually sent me this. RTX is a conglomeration. Raytheon with missiles and radars, Pratt & Whitney with leading-edge jet engines. Collins is an avionics communications technology company. If you recall, Bill Clinton allowed Collins to sell technology to China that enabled their space program. RTX is this massive conglomeration that maybe needs to be broken apart. Beyond just the punishment for what their employees did. The fact that their employees took their work laptops into Russia, China, and Iran and tried to access the internet. I mean, even I, who am not a defense contractor, know you should not do that. And yet they did, which makes you wonder if it was malicious to begin with. But we got huge problems in this country, and our defense contractors and our government officials, everybody's dropped the ball. It's probably time for us at the state level to start doing serious audits on just how invasive the Chinese are into our government structure and our infrastructure in this country. The feds aren't going to do it. The states probably need to. Greetings, conversationalists. Welcome. The latest update from Barrow County, Georgia. 4 dead, 9 wounded. Suspect in custody. The school shooting. Keep those folks over in Barrow County in your prayers, please. Wherever you are nationwide. I've got so many texts from people. So this school has 1,900 kids. It's a massive facility. And I am getting just bombarded by text messages from people. Got a text message from a friend. His daughter-in-law teaches at the school. She's fine. And there are reports circulating as to the identities of the dead, and I'm just not going there until they've been made official. But it's a sad situation shaping up there. We don't know much about the shooter, who apparently is in custody. Just an awful, tragic day. When we come back, I actually want to spend some time on the nature of evil, because it's relevant to a lot of discussions we've been having today, including this. It's a little bit theological, so brace yourself. Just fair warning here, but probably timely, one we should probably have. There's so much else out there going on. You should know that the word on the street in the markets are kind of flat today. The Dow's down 11, NASDAQ down 8, S&P down 6, but the word on the street is there's a growing belief that the Federal Reserve is probably going to cut interest rates by about 0.5 percentage point next week. And there's real encouragement. I think it's the next week or tomorrow. There's real encouragement now on the street that would be the case, and that perhaps it might stimulate the economy, which would be a good thing. However, that being said, there's also a growing sentiment on the street that it doesn't matter what the Fed does, we're still headed to a recession. Deep frustration abounds with the American people. And what I'm noticing by reporters when they ask questions about the economy is kind of a refusal to acknowledge the economy is not good. It's much more a people don't feel it's good, but people don't feel like it. Maybe it's the messaging that's off. It's not the messaging, it's the policies. But, whenever Democrats are losing, the media and the Democrats always believe it's the message that's the problem. It's not actually the economy. The economy is fine. It's just the Democrats aren't talking about it in the right way, as opposed to Americans continue to go to grocery stores and see higher prices than they paid a few years ago, and their wages are only just starting to catch up. They feel like they're behind. They feel like their kids are more behind than they are, and they don't like it. And the American Press Corps and the Democrats do neither favors by trying to tell the Americans that you're actually doing real well when they've been overstating, for example, the amount of jobs created in this country by almost 1 million. It's a problem. You got banks collapsing around the country as well. The government having to step up bailouts for banks. You got 22-year high interest rates that may come down just 0.5 percentage point. Swiss America has been the trustless leader in precious metals in this country for 40 years. They've been warning people about a secret war on cash. If you're interested in safeguarding your hard-earned cash from the secret war on cash, you need their report. They're rated A+ by the Better Business Bureau. They can educate you on protecting your assets. All you have to do is get their report, The Secret War on Cash. It takes less than 15 minutes to read. It can save you on your retirement and finances. To get a free copy, you just call or text my name, Eric, E-R-I-C-K, to 800-289-2646. The All-Out War on Cash includes digital forms of currency. It's growing. You can get their free report, The Secret War on Cash. All you do is mention my name, Eric, when you call or text 800-289-2646. That's 800-289-2646. You can also go to SwissAmerica.com/Eric, SwissAmerica.com/ERICK to get the report, or call or text my name, real easy, to 800-289-2646. Message and data rates may apply. Greetings. Welcome. It's Eric Erickson here across the nation. The phone number 877-973-7425. Should you wish to be on the program, I'm going to go down a rabbit hole by request, which I rarely do. I don't like to take requests, but I feel like I ought to in this situation. The question I get asked more than any other in my life, and I should pause there and put in a parenthetical here. I have not been to seminary in a couple of years because life has been busy. My hope is to get back after the first of the year and finish off my degree working on my master's at Reformed Theological Seminary. life has just been insane the last number of years, starting a national show while doing a local show, and the conference and the travel, and now the election cycle. I really miss going to classes. It's actually good for my soul to go. And I used to be able to go take a class in the morning to the afternoon, get to studio and do my afternoon show. And then I started doing a 9 to noon show and a 4 to 6 show, and it just made it impossible. Now I'm noon to 3. I could conceivably go into my flagship station, do my show from there, 20 minutes from campus, get there in time for the 4 p.m. or the 5 p.m. class, and just do one class like I was doing. I want to get back to it. The whole reason I started going to seminary is I got asked, because I'm perfectly happy to talk about faith on radio, and much to the chagrin of some. And I started getting invited to preach on Sundays, and it just felt very weird to me to have not been to seminary. So I was telling people no, and finally I was like, all right, God, I guess you're telling me go to seminary. So I started going to seminary, finally got to the point where I felt comfortable preaching on Sundays, and all those churches found out where I was going. They're like, yeah, no, not a Reformed guy. So little independent Baptist churches, they're all free will, and I'm a Calvinist. I have preached on occasion. I enjoy it. It's actually, talking behind a microphone for 3 hours a day is not a challenge to me. Preaching, actually, I enjoy the challenge of forming a good sermon. This is where I'm headed off the top of my head, though. And it's based on a question I get more often than any other. Given that I'm pretty open about my faith, how can I worship a God who gave my wife cancer? This ties into this tragedy today of the school shooting in Barrow County, Georgia. How can I worship a God that would allow this to happen? People who aren't believers don't really understand the nuances of the subject of Christianity. God created a perfect garden, a world, in which he created Adam and Eve. And Adam and Eve, being made in the image and likeness of God, had free will. And they chose to defy God. He said, eat anything in this garden, but not that fruit. And the serpent, much like the Gnostics of the day say, is, did God really say? Now, if you read the story, Eve was not around when God told Adam, don't eat of the fruit. And so the serpent goes to the one who was not around when God said it and says, did God really say this? She says, oh, don't eat. Not only do you not eat of it, but don't touch it either. And the devil says, surely not. Go on and touch it and see. She touches it and doesn't die, so she eats it. And of course, Adam blames her for it. And God's like, you dummy. I told you specifically, the God of all creation told you don't eat this. And where Martin Luther and John Calvin and others come in, that separates their theology as Reformed theology from others, is they said, we were now bound to sin. We can't choose God. We don't have we have free volition. We can get up on a daily basis and make our minds up. Are we going to have cake for breakfast or eggs? Are we going to turn on the light switch or turn it off? Are we going to go for a walk or go for a drive? We have volition. We can make our choices in our daily life, but when it comes to actually choosing God, our will is bound to sin, and only if God reaches out and touches us can we be unbound from sin. All of our choices bind ourselves to sin unless God chooses. Now, whether you believe that or not, I do, by the way. I'm a Calvinist. I believe that I believe in all the tulips, total depravity, everything. But whether you believe in free will or free volition, whether you believe in the doctrine of election or not, the fact of the matter is that men are sinful. And in the fall, everything was polluted by sin. The ground itself was polluted by sin. And God floods the world, wipes out all but a single family, and sin comes right back into the world because that family was sinful. And so cancer does not come to my wife because God gave her cancer. Cancer comes from the fall. The world itself was twisted by sin, and it produced disease over time. And then that gets to the question of evil. What is evil? Is it an active thing or is it a passive thing? Now, I'm going to tell you what I believe, and this is not my deep theology from a John Owen or from St. Augustine or a C.S. Lewis or wherever. I'm just going to tell you what I believe. Evil is the absence of God. God did not create evil. Where God is not, evil is. And in the hearts of some, where God is not, evil more manifestly invites in the active presence of evil. Now, what's the active presence of evil? Well, if you're Jewish or Christian, you believe that in the beginning there were angels who rebelled against God. This gets into the earlier stuff on J.R.R. Tolkien, that only man has a divine spark within him that can lead him to a penitent heart and be restored in relationship to God. Angels were created with a will that did not allow them to repent. They were either fully bound to God or fully unbound to God, and it was their choice to unbind themselves. The devil as an angel and those other angels that followed the devil unbound themselves to God, and you must understand, hell is a choice. No one goes to hell except by their own choices. We're all deserving of hell, but we choose to go. The devil and the angels thought they could be better than God. They unbound themselves from God, and once unbound, could not bind themselves back. And they are the active manifestation of evil. And I think we as a secular scientific society deprive ourselves of some of the supernatural truth that's out there. And what I find amazing, and what I've written about in my book, You Shall Be as Gods, is that in our science-sized society, the supernatural didn't go away. We just rationalized it forward. We have people who they're not religious, they're spiritual. People who believe in karma. You do good, good comes back to you. That's actually a religious belief. And in that supernaturalism, there's the demonic. It's not to be trifled with. And too many people treat it very casually. And I do not think it's a coincidence that in our post-Christian society, we're seeing rush in a flood of use of drugs and narcotics and psychedelics. I do not think it's a coincidence that an increased use in psychedelics, there is some evidence to suggest that those people go off the deep end. I mean, what are the visions you're actually seeing? Is it hallucinations, or is it from some unseen realm? I mean, the scripture is very clear, and I believe it, that there's heaven and hell, there's angels, there's demons, and there is an unseen realm, and we are fighting in that unseen realm. Elisha and his helper were surrounded by an army, and God opened the eyes of the helper to see that they were surrounded by an army of angels that he otherwise couldn't see. All of us are in that, fighting hell. Evil is the absence of God, but into that absence pours the manifestation of that evil, which is the devil and his demons. We know from the Bible that the demons, they are legion. There are many of them. And they pull on the souls of man, even those who are the elect, even those who have chosen God. Now, I believe that once saved, always saved. Once you've gotten saved, you're not going to fall away from God. Some people view it theologically other than that. But what I do think is that the demonic is predatory on all of us, particularly those unsaved. You talk to a Catholic priest who's familiar with exorcism, you talk to a Protestant preacher who's familiar with exorcism, what they will tell you is the most common occurrence of the demonic are in places that are on the verge of being churched or have left being churched. This country has left being churched. I don't think it's a coincidence. We're seeing more and more depraved acts in this country as this country has left Christendom behind. In the same way, I know more than one missionary who have been missionaries in Central and South America and Africa who have the wildest stories that will make you the hair stand up on the back of your neck when you hear them, of they're going in and Christianizing places. Look at Haiti, for example. Haiti is a place that has been overwhelmed with voodoo, and churches have gone in there. You talk to missionaries in Haiti, they have seen some stuff, and it defies explanation. I'm not trying to be Art Bell here. I'm just trying to tell you that in our scientific society, where there's got to be a scientific explanation for things, the supernatural is a real thing. Evil is the absence of God. Where God is not, evil exists. But in that void where people choose to create for themselves, evil cannot create, it can only mock. And in mocking, it fills the void with the deviant and the depraved. Bad things are going to happen in this world still because we live in a fallen world. School shootings are going to happen, not because God is not there, but because we live in a fallen world. And this gets me back to my wife. People ask me, how can you worship a God that gave your wife cancer? God did not give my wife cancer. We live in a fallen, twisted world, and in that fallenness, it manifests itself as disease. But God so loved the world, he gave his only Son, that whoever should believe in him would have everlasting life. And God condescended into the form of a man, born in a manger, grew up perfectly, blameless and sinless, and yet was treated as a criminal, crucified on a cross, died, and rose again from the dead. So that though we cannot escape the fallenness of the world, he chose to live within that fallenness with us, living a blameless life, and was still killed. But because he conquered that death on the cross, we will conquer death as well. So we don't escape the terrors of this world. We don't escape the horrors of this world. We are meant, for reasons I don't quite understand, to have to go through this. So what are the differences between religion and cult? Is a cult has all the answers and a religion doesn't. I don't know why God set this up. I don't know why he just doesn't snap his finger and come back, but I know he's going to come back. And I know until that moment, we're going to continue to have horrors and tragedy, particularly in a world that moves beyond the need for Christ. And we're in that world right now. And it plays out in politics, where people yell at each other and scream at each other and divide each other and hate you if you dare love your neighbor who believes opposite you. It plays out in this world with disease. It plays out in this world with school shootings. It plays out in this world with real evil. That evil comes from the absence of God, and the void is manifested and filled with the actual embodiment of evil, those eternal creatures who chose to believe themselves better than God and fell. And so what do? One, you pray. You read Scripture. You fortify yourself. And you understand that all things really do work for the good of those called according to his purpose, which is no easy thing to say on the day of a tragedy. That in some way, somehow, in ways we can't understand, that all things work for the good of those called according to his purpose, however unfair and cruel it might seem at the time. And at the end of the day, it comes down to this. Do you really believe that God is on the throne or not? Because if he is, he's in charge. And though bad things happen in a fallen world, he's still in charge. And at the end of the day, justice comes. And if not, well, into your fear and trembling and terrors you will go and not be rescued. I choose to believe he's on the throne and he's sovereign, and I don't understand why these bad things happen, but I know that at the end of the day, he's in charge, and all things, even those terrible, awful things, even the absence of God in the middle of the night when you're crying out in terror, scared out of your mind because evil's at your doorstep, that in the end, his will is working, and on that last day, maybe we'll have a glimpse of understanding of why these things happen. But if you're on his side on the end of the day, you're on his winning team and you have nothing to worry about, even in the terrors of the day. Even as my wife battles cancer, I know that she will be around for eternity, and that can give me hope even in days where there's not much to be joyful about. Now, I got to move on and tell you about the Eden Pure Thunderstorm. It is an air purifier, and it gets rid of dust, it gets rid of pollen, it gets rid of mold in the air, but it also wipes out odors. Odors are ions. They are electric charged particles that float in the air, and they hit your nose, and they trigger your nose to tell your brain that there's a scent of a certain kind. ozone actually latches on to odor ions and destroys them, and that's what the Eden Pure Thunderstorm does. So wherever the odor is, the ozone can float to it, latch onto the ion, and wipe it out. That's why it's so good at getting rid of smoke odors, because smoke is from ionized particles. That's why it gets rid of dirty diaper odors and litter box odors and pet odors. You can get 3 of them for less than $200 and save $200 at EdenPureDeals.com. The discount code is ERIC3, ERICK3. You go to ERIC3 or go to EdenPureDeals.com. You put in the discount code ERIC3. You'll get 3 Eden Pure Thunderstorms. You'll save $200. You'll get them for less than $200. You'll begin to wipe out odors. You can plug it in with a USB cord or plug it into the wall. EdenPureDeals.com. The discount code is ERIC3. Welcome. It's Eric Erickson here. The phone number, 877-973-7425, except it's too late for you to call in. We don't have much longer. So I got to tell you guys a funny story. Yesterday, I went to a friend of mine who does some consulting work for me. In addition to cutting my hair, he does some other consulting work. And so I paid him through Venmo. And my description of the transaction was consulting and shooting the, well, poop. The transaction wouldn't go through. And I thought, well, maybe there's something wrong with the account. So instead of just clicking through to how I paid him the last time, I re-entered his information. It wouldn't go through. It's like, well, maybe it's my bank account. So I added another bank account, deleted the old bank account, re-added the bank account. Nothing worked. And then on my way home, I got an email. I was stuck in traffic last night. They shut down the interstate on my way home. They were moving heavy equipment in, and it took like 20 minutes. They were doing a paving thing, and the whole interstate was shut down. Sat there for about 20 minutes, and I mean, I'm in park. We're not going anywhere. Checked my email, and got an email from Venmo about my descriptions and word usage. It's like, they weren't worried about me using the poop word. They were worried about me using the shooting word. So sure enough, I I changed the description to consulting and talking. I think that's what I said, consulting and talking. Went right through. Moral of the story is don't reference shootings when you're sending a message. I honestly started to change it to consulting hookers and blow to see if that would go through. But I was like, somebody's going to get that and accuse me of actually having done something. Like, JD Vance released, someone was able to get a hold of his Venmo transactions, and they were all very jokey comments to friends. And I think one of them was like hookers and blow, joking about it. Like, oh, look, he's confessing to using illegal narcotics and prostitution. And like, no, he's clearly joking. Every guy makes that joke, but I decided not to. Next time I may have to do that to see if that goes through Venmo. Shooting clearly does not, but I suspect any other notice of depravity would go through. What a wild, censorious age we live in. You guys have a great day. I'll talk to y'all tomorrow.